Hello, Kerckhoffs here. I am on my way to Del Mar, California from Carlsbad. There's rain in the forecast, so it's nice and cloudy. It's also about an hour away from the sunset, so I think all of that combined could make some nice photos. And I'm actually going to the south of Del Mar and try to get some good shots of Torrey Pines. The rain will start tonight. I hope it's not going to rain when I'm there, but we'll see that prepared, so the camera might get wet, but we'll see. The clouds look pretty nice already, some different colors in there. I can see the ocean right in front of me now. Very nice light. This used to be my commute, going from Del Mar to UCSD. Favorite part of the drive. Just have to find a good parking space. Here we are. And that's a wrap. So let's start by mixing some blue, a light blue for the sky. So this is titanium white and phthalo blue. And I'm going to also mix in a little bit of burnt umber to desaturate the blue a little bit. Not too much. And a little bit of liquin just to speed up the drying process a little bit better. Later I'm going to actually color the rest of the photo. The sky will be painted in and the rest of the photo will be colored, and then I will use a lot more liquin in order to make transparent glazes with the oils. So a tiny bit of burnt umber just to... Actually, no, sorry. This is burnt sienna. A little bit of burnt sienna to desaturate the blue a little bit. So starting on the canvas, painting in the opaque sky, trying to go carefully around the clouds. I'm going to blend in with the clouds a little bit later, and I'm going to do that with like pure liquin. And don't want to forget the side of the canvas here. So this top part of the sky here is going to be just this one color, and then I'm going to add more white as we approach the horizon to get a little bit of a gradient in the sky. So I loved how these clouds turned out when I got here in South Del Mar looking over Torrey Pines. It actually did start to rain later that evening, but not when I was there. Actually, we had a lot of rain after this day. I believe it rained throughout the weekend. So I also want to go carefully around these clouds here, these little guys. The very little ones like this one here, I'm just going to go over it. And I accidentally dropped a blob of paint there, which I'll just go over. Okay, so now I'm taking just pure liquid on a clean brush, and what I'm doing now is I'm blending in the clouds that are part of the photo with the oil paint that I put in the sky. So instead of like blending two different colors, I'm blending transparent areas with the paint. So we get a nicer transition. Sometimes I paint with like opaque whites over the clouds and kind of replacing the clouds. Here I don't really want to do it because I really like the way the clouds look. And this works pretty nicely. With acrylics this would be harder to do. Say mixing acrylic paint with acrylic medium, because you cannot go too many times over one spot with a brush and your medium, because you will reduce or remove the ink that's part of the photo from the inkjet printer. With liquin and oil paint, it's not that much of a problem. You can go over the same area quite a few times before you start removing the ink. Don't want to forget these little guys here. So now we have a nice gradual transition between the opaque paint on the photo and the photo itself, the black and white photo. Okay, so now it's time to add a little bit more white, titanium white, to our mix that we already have, in order to add the next layer of sky colors, a little lighter. It's pretty subtle in the end when you look at it, but it's noticeable, it's there. You can really see it now, but when I start blending them, that difference
disappears a little bit more. So I will do this a couple of times. Add a new layer of blue sky. Try to stay away from the clouds. And then again with clear liquin and a clean brush, blend in the clouds with the oil. And do that in a couple of steps. So now I'm blending in the new layer of blue with the old one. And so blending in again with transparent liquin to blend in the sky with the clouds. Sometimes I put my photos down flat and paint it that way. But here, because it's so big, 6 by 4 feet, I needed a lot of light, so it's actually at the entrance of my garage, and the light that's shining on the canvas is actually just daylight. And then we're mixing the next layer of blue. And now we're blending again the paint with the photo, with the clear liquid. I like that contrast of the blue sky. As you saw in the beginning, that blue was really there in the sky, and then there was like red, orangey, yellow colors of the sunset on the clouds, and I'm going to color that here too. And I'm trying to keep it pretty subtle. I'm not going to go with bright reds and oranges. Kind of gonna go with what it really looked like. As you can see down there on the horizon, a big blob of paint fell down off my brush. And so now I have a bright blue spot on the horizon on the ocean. But I will show you later how I'm going to fix that. I mean, we're painting on this photo, we're coloring it, and I'm going to make use of that. I'm just going to paint over it with different colors. So this is the last layer of light blue, the lightest blue. Again, going carefully along the clouds, and then blend it in later. This part of the sky extends pretty far to the left. So I'm going to go under that big cloud that's on top there. And this is the only, no, actually not the only part, but this is the largest part where I'm using opaque oils. As I said, I'm going to fix that blue spot down there on the horizon, and I'm going to do that with opaque purple. So I'm going to add a little bit of purple to the sky and a little bit of an opaque, different kind of blue to the ocean, right below the horizon. And then the rest of I was mentioning, this is the opaque part, and then later I'm going to color with transparent oils most of the rest of the photo, but I'm also going to use acrylics because I can't get the nicest transparent blues with acrylic paint, because as you saw, liquin has kind of like an orangey look to it, and it kind of messes with my transparent blues. And acrylic medium will turn completely transparent. It's white initially, but it won't have a color cast to it, so I can get the nicest blues with acrylics. So I'm here mixing a little bit of that purplish brownish, like a desaturated purple, putting it on the sky here just to fix that part where I messed up earlier. And then of course I have to do it for all the sky, just above the horizon. And I also will add some of that color. It's a nice purple. Add that to the lowest clouds here. I've mentioned this before in a few of my other videos. Torrey Pines, that was the first beach that I went to when I started doing my beach theme. And a week or two ago, maybe it was last week even, I uploaded a triptych that I did of Torrey Pines, and that was a photo from 2011, I believe. This one is only from a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just adding some color to the shadow part of these clouds here. This is still like an opaque purple. The clouds are dark enough here, so I don't. So I'm not doing it yet with transparent oils. The rest of these clouds I will color with like transparent oranges and reds. So now we get a nice mix of blues in the far background, like purple on the shadow side of the clouds, and then reds and oranges on the brighter side of the clouds. And that last part will be done, as I mentioned, with transparent oils. So I'm making that mix here using a lot of liquin, a little bit of lemon yellow, some cadmium red, and mix a light orange, and then throw that into the liquin. When I was doing this, I noticed I took a little bit too much paint, so it was a little bit too intense, not transparent enough. So I'm adding a little bit of more liquin here, and then take that part of the paint that's now on the brush and just putting it into the clear new liquin. So this gives me a nice, more transparent, more subtle color of orange that I'm going to put on the brightest side of the clouds. Later I'm going to use the more intense saturated oranges for the other parts of the clouds. But this is the color that I was looking for to put on the brightest parts of the clouds. So now we went transparent. It's not opaque anymore. Now we are coloring the photo. The whole true time of this whole process was a couple of hours of the painting and the coloring. And I like to use these simple, cheap brushes, flat brushes. They're pretty soft. You wouldn't typically use this with oil paint, but because I'm using a lot of liquid now, it gets really liquidy, more liquid, and not as pasty as regular oil paint is. And then regular oil brushes would be too stiff for this coloring part here. So I like this subtle orange for this part of the sky on the clouds. I'm going to put this on all the highlights. And it's okay if you go a little bit over that opaque purple from earlier. You wouldn't notice it really anyway. Just have to be careful that you don't mix it too much and pick up that purple on your brush. And again, don't want to forget these little guys here. Also on the side. It's always a nice contrast, the warms and the cool, the warm and the cool colors. So we have a lot of contrast in the black and white between light and dark, but also nice contrast between the colors. And as I mentioned in my artist statement, I like to visualize scenes that contrast between human-made objects and nature, and that's what we have here too. A lot of time went into the sky, probably put more time into the sky than anything else here in this photo, but it also takes up most of the photo. So now this is that earlier mix I made that was a little bit too saturated, and I'm going to add that to the slightly darker parts of the clouds. I'm also going to use a little bit of that color on the bridge, because the sun was nicely shining from the side onto the pillars of the bridge. So that's the 101, Highway 101, that goes over the bridge, and it goes over the coastal track that goes underneath. So I'm also using a little bit of that more saturated orange in the sky, mostly on the right here. That's closest to where the sun was setting. And then I will leave the purple that I added to the sky to the left of this part. That's starting to take shape now. You can see the nice contrast, big clouds, a lot of orange and yellows on the clouds with that blue in the background. So now it's time to continue fixing where I made that, where I added accidentally that big blob of paint onto the ocean and the sky. So I'm going to add like a darker desaturated blue to the horizon on the water. So I mixed phthalo blue, burnt umber, and white. And it's not transparent. This is opaque, and so this will fix that blue, light blue that I accidentally dropped onto the canvas. And you can see it works pretty nicely. And of course I don't want to do the whole ocean this way with opaque paint, because you would lose all the detail in the ocean. That is from that's in the photo. But just below the horizon, it's okay to do this. This will still look good. In fact, it's already got a little bit of touch of color now. So I'm adding a little bit of that orange that I made earlier and adding it to some of the plants at the bottom of the photo here, just to give it a little bit of a variety of colors in the vegetation. Not exactly what plants these are, but that was a little too much, so I'm wiping off a little bit of paint just with a paper towel. It's always nice to have a little bit of variety of colors. Even if you use one type of color, say green, it's nice to add a little bit of a darker green, more of a yellower green, and later on indeed also I will add a few more yellows to the greens. There's going to be a lot of green here in this vegetation, and I'll also add some yellows to it. Kind of like to use the colors as I make them. So normally I wouldn't start doing this already. I would first do the greens of the vegetation, but since I had that color already, I thought I'll just make use of it, because I might have to refresh my palette later and there's too much old paint on it and I need to make some new colors. Okay, more liquin. By the way, that stuff is very stinky. I'm actually working like half outside here and have some breeze coming through. So now I took a little bit of burnt sienna and I'm going to use that for the bluffs of Torrey Pines in the back, which I'm doing right now. And then also make it a little lighter by adding a little bit more liquid later, and also coloring the beach with it and some areas that need a little less of it, but still add some color. I use this color a lot, this burnt sienna. I think it's perfect for the beach, but also for like ghost towns, the wood of ghost towns. The bluffs here. So on the bluffs here, I added a little bit more of it, like a little bit more saturated, because the sun is like shining on it. Burnt sienna is like an orangey brown. And that's the lagoon back here. And I'm trying to be a little bit careful because there's also some water there, to which I want to add a little bit of blue later. There's still a little bit of dirt in view here, which I'm also adding this burnt sienna to, and then later I'm going to add the greens around this area here. As I mentioned in the intro, this used to be part of my commute when I was still working at the University of California in San Diego. I used to live in Del Mar, and then I would either take the 5 towards UCSD, or I would go along the coast here over the 101, which of course is much more scenic. Okay, so now it's time to add a little bit more liquin to that mix of burnt sienna that already has some liquin in it, which will make it more transparent. So we'll have a little less of that color, and that's a good color for like the lighter areas, like that path that leads down through the bluffs here and the beach. You do want to have a little bit of variety in the values that you put on. It's still all the same color, but you can put on more or less of it. And then this is Torrey Pines Beach. This is where those permanent lifeguard towers are, which I also have photos of. And last week in my photo of people of Torrey Pines, there's like 4 towers that you can see. And they're actually on that beach. Tower 5 is right behind the bluff where the bridge ends, so we cannot see that one. And now I'm mixing a little bit of that older orange and liquin with the burnt sienna, and I'm going to add that to the bridge. So because the sun is like shining on it from the right, it has a little bit of more of a warmer color. It's like an even more orangey brown now. I was thinking of maybe leaving it untouched, the bridge, because it kind of stands out that way between all the colors, and then if you wouldn't color the bridge, it would be still nice and light gray. However, and I think it was like that in the original scene, you could see like the bridge was nicely lit up in warm colors from the sun. This bridge was actually like redone or reinforced a while ago, well, at least 10 years ago, when it was still at UCSD. So I'm adding a little bit more color to the side of the bridge here, and this is more of that orange color that we used for the clouds earlier. So that's sap green, and again going to mix that in with liquin. So I'm making like a transparent green for all the vegetation in the background and the foreground. I think the photo really needed this color. And in this case here, it's okay if you like go over the lines as a matter of speaking. Actually, when there's a lot of burnt sienna around these areas here, and it just makes the green a little bit more desaturated. Also, I'm coloring this scene pretty close to what it really looked like originally. And of course you don't have to do that. I have turned scenes from that I shot at midday into sunsets or sunrises. Or, for example, I have my California bus, which was originally blue, and I painted it in all kinds of colors, including like rainbow colors. In multiple colors and on the bus, I mean. However, in this case, I really liked the way it looked. With the warm clouds, the blue sky. What I could have done here, for example, is add some more reds and oranges, maybe a gradient that goes from blue to purple to red and orange in the sky. But as you can see, I didn't do that. It's a fun activity, and especially just looking at it, how it changes over time. It looks like already completely different than from the original black and white. And of course, sometimes I don't color my images at all. I mean, I like them as they are in black and white. Or you can like selectively color, you pick out certain objects or subjects, just color those. So add a little bit of yellow to it. To the greens, to the green mix, and brighten it up here and there. So now it's time for the ocean. So I feel like, as I mentioned earlier, I can get nicer blues when I do it with acrylics. At least that is when I color with paint on canvas. So when I do it on photo paper, the oils, the Marshall photo oils I use can give me really nice blues. But here I'm mixing it with liquin, and the liquin has some kind of tint to it. So, and it kind of, I feel it desaturates my blues a little. Even the phthalo blues, which are normally very, very strong, very saturated. So I decided to color my ocean with acrylic paint, mix it with acrylic medium from Golden, and that gives me these really nice saturated blues. I'm using a wider brush now because I can cover a lot of area at once now. There's also not too many breaking waves here with white water, so I don't have to worry about that either. And this really finishes the piece, adding these nice saturated blues to the ocean. And remember, it's a little bit darker blue in the back because of that opaque oil paint we added earlier. I'm also not coloring everything, so where the water is actually on the beach, I will leave that untouched, so it has a little bit of that gray, very light gray, almost white sheen to it, and it separates it from the land. So I'm mixing a little bit of orange, and that's because in the original photo, if you remember, you could see there's a little bit of orangey reflection from those big clouds on the ocean. I kind of want to also put that in the photo here. So I'm doing that with acrylic just because I had the acrylic out. I could have done this with the oils, but I got rid of that paint that we used earlier. So I'm just using a mix of acrylic orange and acrylic medium, and add that with a smaller brush to the ocean under these big clouds here. And that's the last thing to do. That was it. And it's finished. The 6x4 feet piece on canvas, black and white photo, hand colored with oils, partially painted, like the sky over there. And if you like this video, please hit that like button, and I will see you next time.